Hi there, Jennifer from Tarle Speech with your pronunciation question. Today's question is a super quick lesson. How do I pronounce the word typical or ordinary? Let's go ahead and take a look. So the word is typical, and we have the schwa syllable in here. So the mistake that I hear is most people say typical, and that's incorrect because oftentimes in English, in longer words, that middle letter I becomes the schwa syllable, and that's the case here. We have typical, typical, typical. So let's look at the syllables here. We're going to start with tip with the nice short I sound, tip. Then you're going to move to that The key is make that second syllable very, very short and make sure it's connected to syllable number 1. So I also hear people say tip-a-col. And that's not the way we say it. We link it all together. Tippa, typical, typical, typical. Be careful here with the ending. Think of this again as a really short sound. Typical, col, col. You can actually think of it even without a vowel there, just the K and the L sound. Col, col. The mistake I hear is people will say cow, typical, and that's not correct. It's typical, 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 typical. I added typically, even though this wasn't part of the question from my student, and the reason I added this is because I hear another mistake here. When we say typically, we are most of the time going to use just 3 syllables. I do hear some variations, but by and large, I really just hear people say typically, 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 typically. The mistake that I hear from my students is I will hear people say typically or typically, and that sounds like an alley where you put your trash in the city, and that's not what we want to say. We want to say typically, typically. So the syllable breaks are going to change a little bit. So we still have tip at the beginning of both of these words, but instead of saying we're going to say ick. Typical, typically. Typical, typically, typical, typically. And let me give you a sentence. On a typical day, I typically eat eggs for breakfast. On a typical day, I typically eat eggs for breakfast. Give it a try. I know people are going to notice the difference. If you found this helpful, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. Check out our products on Google Play and iTunes, and visit Tarle Speech for more information. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope to see you again soon.